You're right, kids, it's Raasclark, and welcome to perhaps the most overhauled structure conversion you've ever seen before in ARK. A serious plethora of structures handmade for rebalancing by, in my opinion, one of the best builders in ARK. ARK Progression and Utility Structures mod offers 40 new structures to help rebalance ARK's progression system, to offer you new tiers to work towards and new tiers to appreciate as you work your way through the ranks, with a set dedicated to stone, a set dedicated to modern or metal, and a set dedicated to tech with a few decor objects thrown in. But what do they all do, right? Well, let's go check them out, and I'm really excited to find out, because honestly, I'm a massive fan of Kaviden. Sorry for the fanboyism, but I am. The dude makes some impressively wonderful, intricate builds in ARK, and very sparse with his uploads throughout the years now. And assuming this is the same Kaviden who does the build videos that I've been watching for years now, well before I was doing videos, I'm really excited to see his opinion, his take on what a structured progression rebalance is needed for ARK and keeping things fresh today. So kicking things off with a new smithy, a smith station as it's adequately put, unlocked at level 45, and is simply the smithy that you know, but with the extension of building all of these structures that are available within this tier. What you'll notice with this, that it's also got 200 slots as opposed to the normal smithy, and gear can be crafted at a much quicker rate than a normal smithy on top. So the first one, of course, is the smelting forge, an improved version of the forge that you know, the stone forge, but a forge offering between that and an indie forge. Unlocked at level 40, costing 500 metal ingots. Once putting some wood and metal in, you'll find this smelting at a much quicker rate than a stone forge. And that's pretty much what it says on the tin, right? Again, with this version of the forge, you'll notice there's 50 slots as opposed to the stone forge's slots. And I can see this being a great tier to move to as you work your way through to indie forge, with this one being a really aesthetically looking cool thing. Look at the coal burning away there, the implant on the top, a cheeky few tools and bellows pumping out the fire, and of course, yeah, that implant chimney pumping out smoke at the top. It looks lovely. And aesthetically, the smithy, there's a few extra features to it. You can see a few tools hanging from it. You can see a vice on the end, kind of just simply extending that smithy just a little bit, but not too much bigger than a normal smithy that you know. Does seem that touch more bigger, so you're going to need a bit more space for it when placing that one down. Then onto something a lot of people don't use because the current jar is a bit whack the vessel. The salt jar version, unlocked at level 32, has a lot more slots to play with and could actually be something you might actually use to preserve salt, seeing that there's slots available to do so, right? But this one, of course, a lot of people are going to be happy to see something like this, a medieval water well, because as you can expect, it stores water, right? Unlocked at level 32 with some not so bad stats, can be placed anywhere and everywhere, and does offer a sizable irrigation space, but will of course need some irrigation in order to be irrigated and pass on that irrigation, right? But definitely a cheaper version than a metal water tank costing absolutely no ingots, and stores water over time, so a useful feature, and it's a cool looking well. And who doesn't want an aesthetically pleasing well in their medieval setup, right? So over to this, a honey barrel, which, as you might have guessed it, stores honey in it and stops it from spoiling, and let's face it, the spore timer on honey sucks, so a very useful feature, having an absolutely insane spore timer when placed within. You will need one honey to make sure it's fueled, but as long as there's honey in there, it'll continue to keep the honey barrel fueled. Unlocked at level 32, requiring 100 ingots. It's a nice looking feature. Look, there's a little splash of honey dropping into a splash of honey pool. As you can see, it filling to the brim with lots of that juicy sweetie goodness once it's full with honey, or at least just one. Job done. Then of course a bed. We haven't got enough beds in ARK, have we? And here's one in between a simple bed and a bunk bed, a medieval bed, because who doesn't want to be all snug and cozy in their big giant beds? This one unlocks at level 35 and is going to improve your respawn timer as opposed to the simple bed. And by the description, it seems that you might be able to share it with your homies. And then a different storage chest in between the storage boxes and the vaults. Unlocked at level 35 and requiring some metal, 50 ingots. You're going to bag yourself a 100 slot storage chest. So obviously a bit more space than a normal storage chest. Definitely being a lot stronger, and does stack, if you're interested, does stack with different variants. If you wanted a skull variant or maybe even a rustic variant, you could do that too. Look at that. I really like this skull one especially, looks like my cup of tea. And if you preferred, you can have a tiny chest version, which can't store as much as the larger version. Unlocked at level 30, requiring 25 metal ingots. You get the same deal too with stacking, having different variants. Again, different variants from the large ones, actually. You've got a rustic-looking Aztec version and a Explorer Note-looking version. Love that. That's cool. Then onto a trough that's great to see because you don't get any trough beyond the normal feeding trough until you unlock tech troughs. A feasting trough unlocked at level 32, requiring 45 metal ingots. We've only just 15 more slots over a normal trough, but an improved spore timer, which is great to see instead of the 20 minutes you'll find with normal raw meat, with a small extension in a normal trough. In a feasting trough, that timer is multiplied tenfold and offers you a nice little grainy appeal for your creatures to eat out of. Look at that. That's lovely. Then onto the deconstruction station, which is simply a primitive version of the grinder. Unlocked at level 40, requiring 300 ingots, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than a grinder. You can finally do something with all of those dirty Aranio saddles that you keep collecting and actually get some mats from them. Bagging yourself some mid-game poly and metal much easier, quicker than farming up for an industrial grinder. And speaking of deconstructing, there's a decomposing bin, because one big thing that we're missing is a better version of the compost bin. Unlocked at level 25 and requiring raw meat to actually make. I guess that kind of explains the rib cage on the top. Still produces 1 fertilizer for every 3 types of poop, but at a much quicker rate than a compost bin, so definitely worth the thought. And then something I thought was going to create magical spells, but then thought about it for 2 seconds. An alchemy table, being a go-between between a mortar and pestle and a chem bench. Unlocked at level 35, requiring 75 metal and a bit of crystal and paste. It's going to do what you know, but at a much quicker rate than a mortar and pestle. And I quite like the aesthetics of this one. Almost looks a bit N64. Not sure what Kaviden was thinking about, but did say this is in a very early access. He recently just dropped this like a week ago, and he's still kind of testing this, and we kind of jumped the gun and saw this mod and thought we got to check this out. Speaking of checking things out, medieval grill. So something between a campfire and an indie grill. Unlocked at level 36, requiring 50 metal and still only requiring wood to be used. It's going to cook your meat much quicker than a campfire, and using something that's much cheaper and, gotta say, aesthetically more pleasing than an indie grill. Especially like all the chopped logs on the side there. Looking nice there, Kaviden. Done a great job with it. And the brickwork on the back. That's beautiful. Then onto the stewing cauldron. I have no idea what this is. Seems to need to be irrigated. And of course we know what this is. It's a medieval cooking pot, isn't it? It's a cooking pot between cooking pot and the indie one. Unlocked at level 36, requiring a bit of oil, paste and 300 metal ingots. The fact it can be irrigated alone negates the fact that you need water to put in your cooking pots all the time to keep things being made in those. As you'd hope and expect. Makes things, doesn't make things. Oh, because it needs wood in it. We'll still need wood to be turned on, but once turned on, lights a little fire underneath. Has a little boil and broth going on the top, and definitely makes things at a quicker rate than a normal cooking pot. Then onto the preserving icebox, which is, as you probably guess, a go-between between the preserving bin and the fridge later on. Unlocked at level 36, requiring 60 metal ingots. Still requires spark powder to be activated, but when anything's put in there, you're going to find a indefinitely bigger, longer spore timer than you'd get with a preserving bin. And if you're wondering, it doesn't seem to make jerky, but there's another structure we're going to show off that does just that in a minute. And then there's a pantry that's kind of a variant of the preserving icebox, but the bonus with this one, unlocked at level 30, requiring 50 crystal, no metal ingots, is that you can store stuff in there and improve that spore timer without the need of anything to pair with the thing. But it's only dedicated to stews and soups, as well as narcotics, simulants and sap. And then the last but one of this tier, the scroll shelf. That looks nice. It's a shelf with a bunch of scrolls on it. Unlocked at level 31, requiring just paste, no metal ingots. It's a better bookshelf than the bookshelf, and able to store up to 200 of your blueprints. And lastly, of this particular tier, I love this, a metal cage, which is, you know, who doesn't want to see a better version of the wooden cage and cage people in, or maybe even players, considering the size of this thing. Unlocked at level 39 and requiring 500 metal ingots. It's just a big ass cage, man, to put stuff in. And if you're wondering, because I am, can be used to cage a creature in like a trike. There we go. And now you've got the freedom to tame things at ease without them getting out the cage. Job done. I love this. There we go. Nice easy way to knock something out. So that was stone tier / medieval tier. Now on to modern / industrial, which I guess is just a cut above metal. First off, you got the distillery unlocked at level 50, as opposed to the beer barrel unlocked at 36, and does what the beer barrel does, but as the title suggests, does so much faster than a beer barrel. Needing to be irrigated as well, costing 500 metal ingots. Definitely makes beer at a much quicker rate, as opposed to the 6 hours you gotta wait for a beer barrel. Definitely worth it. With a cool looking aesthetic, Bob's beer, because Bob's beer, because you're a Bob and you like beer, right? I like this. Looks cool. Unlocked at level 55, requiring 200 metal ingots and a bit of electronics and paste and oil. This one suggests it should make prime meat jerky and cooked meat jerky at a much faster rate. Though, in this testing, when I'm putting the meat in there, it's instantly spoiling, as Kaviden said there was going to be bugs. And, you know, it is day one, so I guess this will change. But when it does change, you're going to get jerky being made super duper quicker than, of course, in a preserving bin, and obviously in a much cheaper structure than the costly industrial preserving bin that's part of the Bob's pack. We've got a lovely looking milk tank. Look at the milk frothing in there, that's horrible. That finally you can store that super duper quick spoiling wyvern milk and make sure it never spoils ever again in a milk tank, and maybe just in time with Raasclark around the corner and bison milk being a thing soon. This one though was unlocked at level 60, requiring 120 metal ingots as well as a bit of poly electronics and crystal. And then a better air conditioner. I love this because air conditioners are so loud and noisy. Listen to that thing. The bane of everyone's existence in hearing in their ears. The aircon is just far too loud. And Kaviden's provided something that's a nice, cleaner, smoother flow to your ears and looks pretty at the same time. Unlocked at level 65, just a cut above an air conditioner, requiring 100 metal ingots, a bit of poly electronics and crystal, and does the job, seeming to output around the same temperature as a air conditioner. And if you're interested, does stack without the pain of more sound to your ears. And onto this is a great addition. A solar panel, which, as the name suggests, when done and built at level 60, requiring 250 metal, and once turned on is going to convert any sun into power to power structures around it, so offering a alternative version to maybe a power genny or a windmill, right? And looks cool. Like, who doesn't want a base with solar panels on the top? Everyone's doing it, all the homes have got them now. Why not have a home in ARK that has a solar panel too? And then a next step up on the trough, in between this and the tech trough, is the refrigerated trough. Unlocked at level 60, which is the same level as a refrigerator and needing 300 metal ingots, a bit of poly and electronics. It's going to do what it says on the tin. Act as a refrigerated trough. So you haven't got to go and get the tech unlocks to have that a trough does what a tech trough does, but without the requirement of unlocking tech to get the tech trough, right? And also 85 slots. Nice. And then a different version of the smelting forge. This was kind of interesting. Pillowing out a bit of fire on the top. And I guess a smaller, nice, easy to fit in your base offering than a giant indie forge. This one seems to be roughly the same size of one, just without the top giant piece. So you can actually get it in a smaller base. Unlocked at the same level and requiring exactly the same amount of mats, 2,500 metal ingots, poly, paste, oil and crystal. It's literally just the industrial forge, but smaller, as the name suggests. He's just cut the top off it, and I like that for that, because it's always a pain to find somewhere to put your indie forge if you haven't built a big enough base for it, right? And then lastly of this tier, a fabrication station, which looks a bit like the fabricator, but an industrial version of it. Unlocked at level 63, requiring 200 metal ingots, 200 paste, spark powder, crystal and oil. You're going to find this one to have a lot more item slots, and as you're hoping, makes stuff a lot quicker than a normal fabricator. So you know you can make your arbs a lot quicker now, rather than having to wait a day and a half for them to be made in a normal fabricator. That's great. I love that. And that's that tier. With one more to go. Tech. An introduction to a bunch of different tech structures once you finally reach them. Starting off with the tech fridge, unlocked with the replicator and requiring 120 metal ingots and needing to be made in a replicator. It's what you think it does. It's going to give an insane spoil timer to anything put in this thing. You will never need to worry about spoiling ever again with whatever you put in a tech fridge. And it's a big chunky tech looking thing with some giant amount of slots, 300 slots in this, an absolute monster. And of course, something that can't be destroyed too easy. And this, I love this. We needed something that was an improvement over vaults. Yes, you've got dedicated storage, but why not have something to store all your armor and goods in that's better than a vault that's got a chunky amount of health and is tech? Well, get a tech chest. Unlocked with tech, requiring 600 metal, a bit of element and poly and paste to make, but giving you 500 slots to fill in this thing and offering some chunky sound as you interact with it, throw in your stuff. Useful to use and store stuff in. I like that. Who wants a tech cooker? Who wants a thing that can cook quicker than an indie cooker? Get a tech cooker. Because, boom, super duper quick, a bit of an expensive, pricey thing to make, requiring 3,000 metal ingots and 50 element and a lot of poly and paste, but makes things mega quick. And if you want a super duper variant of the cooker that you got it in tech. There it is. And look at this thing. Oh, yo, in a tech grill that at the moment says industrial grill, but I'm sure Kavida will get that sorted, imbuing us with element as we cook. Let's see how quick we cook. We cook super quick. We tech cook with tech grill in a very cool looking grill. I love this. It's a very interesting idea, but something not cheap to make, as you'd expect, with 1,000 metal ingots, 400 poly, 400 oil and 300 crystal. Though no Ellie to actually make this one. That's interesting. And then what the hell is this thing? A tech forge. Yo, yo. Yo, that's insane. Look at this thing. Not going to be cheap to make as the price suggests, but come on. Bosh, 20 at a pop. That ain't bad. That's pretty rapid. Done. That's 100 metal smelted in the space it took me to try and speak what I wanted to speak. Compared to the Steam Forge, actually not too bad. It's actually the same price as a Steam Forge, but a smaller, much smaller tech variant that you can actually put somewhere in your base without needing a giant space to fill the thing. I love this. I love all of it. I've said that for quite a few things in this, haven't I, Kaviden? And if you fancied a version of the grinder, you get a tech version, a tech deconstructor. Wow, that's cool. The controls need a bit of work. They're looking a bit ropey there, looking a bit N64, but still, does this give us the same mats it costs to make things? Because this thing's expensive. It costs 6,000 metal ingots, 50 elements, 1,000 poly. Something that's always bugged me with the grinder is that anything you grind, you get less resources, right? So I'm curious, Indie Forge, that normally costs 2,500 metal to make, grinded in here, gives us the same amount of mats back. Oh, it's good. And a Rex saddle here costing 47,000 metal ingots to make. Never going to make that thing, but let's say you got one out of a drop right that was of similar quality and you grinded that. Did we just get all the mats? Did we get full? Oh, we did. Woof. That's hot. I love that. That's what we needed. We definitely needed a tech variant of the grinder, and it's good to see. I love that thing. And of course, space. Space is the game of this one. Kaviden is known for trying to contain as much as he can within a small base design. So he said, look, you know, you need a tiny tech replicator, right? You need a small version of the replicator that you know to actually fit in a base without needing a giant size space to put the thing in. I love it. I love it all. Kaviden, absolutely wonderful job. The aesthetics of all of these are great. I can see definitely a lot of variety with these. I hope that a lot of people want to install this mod after showcasing it, because Kaviden knows his stuff. This is a dude who's been playing ARK for a decade. The dude knows ARK through and through and wants to deliver something to you that's going to be adopted to well, and I think this could be a great touch. The only concern is, of course, is power leveling through. Are you going to just power level past all of this stuff over here and just move on straight to maybe all of this stuff over here? But I think certainly in some play styles, this is great. For people looking for a primitive type of play, this is brilliant. I love what Kaviden's offering here, and even in a very early version, this is Kaviden's very first ever mod he's ever made. Done a wonderful job. Even thrown in a few chairs to boot, a few tables at the back there, some cobblestone walls if you wanted to make a garden as well, and some shelves to place things on your shelves. And this, a chicken statue that if you go cluck yourself, you freeze and get told to cluck off. Oh, damn it, that's us demonetized now. So as we begin to freeze to death, but not so much because we're wearing tech, ha ha ha. But what I'll do is this, take my gear off and see how quick we die now. Oh, not too bad. See, King of Fortitude, not so much. When you got 76 points in Fortitude, not so much. But if it was, it would have killed me. But either way, a wonderful lineup of structures here. Honestly, well done, Kaviden. Great first mod. And it's somebody who knows ARK. It's somebody who knows ARK well and wants to give you something, some new taste of offering, and definitely giving me some thoughts and ideas in the future on what I do with playing ARK myself. So go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. Until the next one, my name is Raasclark. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, peace out.